In today's video, I want to go over the steps to install Debian using a manual partitioning method in a UEFI environment and utilize the BTRFS file system, or ButterFS, BetterFS, BTRFS, b-treefs, however you want to call it, doesn't bother me. But the Debian installer, while it allows you to format partitions to BTRFS, it doesn't create subvolumes, which is necessary for snapshots. But there is a way to install Debian with BTRFS subvolumes, and that's what I wanted to show today. There's also some tools that you can utilize when using ButterFS on Debian, like Snapper and TimeShift. And today I'm going to be using TimeShift, and I'm probably going to make Snapper its own video eventually, once I get to play around with it some more and get a better understanding. Because I mean, I can copy and paste commands as good as the next guy, but if I can't explain it simply, then I don't have a good enough understanding of it. And I feel like I would be doing you guys a disservice by just copying and pasting commands when I can't give a good explanation of why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. So with that said, let's install Debian on ButterFS subvolumes, create a snapshot manually, then install TimeShift and make it easy. Let's get started. So here we are in Virt Manager. I just kind of wanted to show how to set up a UEFI environment in Virt Manager, because I mean, everybody uses VirtualBox nowadays, and well, it's not available in the Debian repos. So here we go. We're gonna hit the plus button and we're gonna install from local media, hit forward, and you can browse to your ISO or whatever, but here I have Debian 10.6 already there. Hit forward. I'm going to give myself 4 gigs of RAM and 4 cores. I'm going to hit forward, and I'm going to create a 64 gig volume because I'm planning on using this VM for a little bit. But anyway, so let's get started. I'm going to hit plus on my volumes, and I'm going to name this Debian 10-ButterFS, and I'm going to increase my size to not quite that much. We'll hit finish. Wow. ButterFS tutorial. All right, it made that. We're going to choose that volume. I'm going to hit forward there, and I'm going to name it Debian 10 ButterFS tutorial. We're going to customize the configuration before the install. Remember to click this button. We'll hit finish. And now you can change your firmware from BIOS to UEFI. And you can pass through USBs if you want to. There's a lot of things you can do here. And honestly, it could probably take its own series of videos. But if you wanted to get a UEFI environment, change your firmware to UEFI. I'm going to leave the chipset the same this time. I'm going to hit apply and begin installation. And here, I'm just going to send this to the other desktop, and we're going to go down to advanced options. But first, let's scale this so we can actually see what's going on. All right, so we're going down to advanced options. And we're not going to do the graphical expert install. We're going to do the incursus based, because if you do the graphical expert install in Virt Manager, I haven't tried it on hardware yet, but if you do it in Virt Manager, it X fails once you call up a shell, make your edits, and then try to go back to the graphical install. So let's just go with incursus, and we're going to let that run. And this is going to be just the standard Debian expert install. All I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of blow through this pretty quickly, and then we're going to stop and really go in depth once we pull up a shell. What we're going to do now is just choose language. United States is all good for me. American English is good. Detect and mount CD-ROM. That's good. I'm going to hit OK. Load installer components. That's all good. And see, I didn't choose anything from that list because everything needed to install Debian is there by default anyway. So we're going to detect network hardware. We're going to configure the network. Auto configure is fine. Hit continue. And network auto config has succeeded. Host name of Debian is fine. No domain name because this is going to be a desktop. Let's see, set up users and passwords. We're going to enable shadow passwords. Yes, I'm not going to allow login as root because, well, this is going to be one user system and it's me. So full name for the new user is Mike. Username for the account is Mike. And we're going to set up a password that is not Doctor Who themed. Just like all of my other passwords on these virtual machines are not Doctor Who themed. They're not. Now we're going to configure the clock. Yes. And I'm in the central time zone, so I'm going to arrow down to that. Detect the disks. This should pop back up to our main menu, and partition disks. Now here's where it gets a little bit different. What we're going to do, we're going to arrow down to manual. We're going to arrow down to virtual disk or VirtIO block device. We're going to create an empty partition table on the device. GPT is already highlighted, and that's what we want. We're going to go down here to free space and see it actually says that we have 68.7 gigs of free space when I only gave it 64, but I think that's gigabytes and not gigabytes. So we're going to create a new partition. I'm going to make just the boot partition, say 600 megs, the same as I did on my Arch install from a long time ago now. So we're going to hit continue. Put it at the beginning. We're going to use this as an EFI system partition. Boot flag's already on, so now we are done setting up that partition. We're going to arrow down back to our free space. We're going to create a new partition. I'm going to make this my swap file, my swap partition. Create a new partition. We're going to make this, I don't know, I gave it 4 gigs of RAM. They generally say 1.5 times, so 6 gigabytes. At the beginning, use as swap area. Done setting up the partition. And now we're just going to make one big partition for our root and home and all that, because home is going to be on its own subvolume as well. So let's create a new partition for the rest of it, which is 62.1. Continue. Use as, we're not going to do ext4. We're going to hit enter here, and we're going to arrow up to BTRFS journaling file system. Mount point is root. That's all good. We're done setting up the partition. Arrow down to finish partitioning and write changes to disks. Yes. Now we're not going to install the base system yet. We're actually about to go up here. We're going to send it a key to Control-Alt-F2. This is going to give us a shell. So now we hit enter to activate the shell, which is actually BusyBox. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the df command. So df, and we hit enter, we see that VDA3 is set up for target, and VDA1 is target, boot, EFI. First, we need to unmount both of those. So we're going to run umount /target/boot/EFI. Now we can unmount the target. So umount/target. Now I want to mount VDA3 to /mnt. I probably didn't have to unmount it from target, but I like to do that because I'm going to mount my subvolumes back to target. So let's mount /dev/VDA3 to /mnt. Now that that's mounted, we can cd into mnt, and now we can create our subvolumes. So the way I'm going to do that, we're going to do BTRFS subvolume create, and I know that there's abbreviations for all of these things, but I'm going to type everything out so it's easier to understand what I'm doing. So we're going to call this at, and that's going to be our root. BTRFS subvolume create at home, and let's do snapshots, and we can view these by saying BTRFS subvolume list dot. You see we have ID 257, 258, and 259 for our root, home, and snapshots respectively. What I can do now is say mount -O for options. We're going to do RW for read and write. We're going to do no A time. Compress equals LZO, comma, space underscore cache. We're going to do subvol ID equals 257. So you can do, and you could leave it like this, or you can go ahead and add subvol equals at. So I'm just going to leave both in there for now, and I'm going to remove one of them later, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to mount with these options /dev VDA3 to /target. So now we actually need to make directories in our /target to mount home and snapshots too. So we're going to do mkdir-p /target /home. We're also going to hit the up arrow to get the same command back, and we're going to change home to snapshots. Actually, we're going to change that to .snapshots, so it is a hidden directory. Now we can hit the up arrow 3 times to get this back, and I'm going to change 257 to 258, change subvol to at home, and then add /target /home on that command, and now that has everything to do with our home subvolume. I'll hit enter here, and it took that rather nicely. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to change 258 to 259. We're going to change at home to at snapshots, and then we're going to change /target /home to /target /snapshots. Because we created that hidden directory, it needs to be called here as well. All right, so now let's run the ls command to see what else we have in our mnt directory here. You see we have an Etsy directory and a media directory. We need to move that to target as well. So what I'm going to do is mv Etsy / so everything that's in Etsy, everything's going to be moved to /target. Now we're also going to mv media to /target. And if we also have a boot directory here, but that boot directory is empty. So if I cd into boot and then do ls-a, you see we have an EFI. So if we cd into EFI, you see it is completely empty. So cd so now we can actually just rm-r boot. If we run ls command again, you see we have at home, at home, and at snapshots. But all of those are now mounted to our /target. Now let's mount our boot directory to our target as well. So let's mkdir-p /target /boot/EFI. Now let's mount /dev/vda1 to /target /boot/EFI. All right, now we are pretty much ready to go. The only thing I want to do now is umount /mnt. Now if we cd into /target, you see we have boot, Etsy, home, and media. Same as everything we just moved over. So if we cd into Etsy, you see we have an FS tab that's already been generated. That FS tab is calling old information now. So we need to edit this FS tab to be what it needs to be now. So now let's not Vim. Vim is not in BusyBox. We have to use nano. So nano FS tab. So this UUID is going to stay the same. And this is for our root. We're going to change defaults to RW, comma, no A time, comma, compress equals LZO, comma, space underscore cache, comma, subvol ID equals 257, comma, subvol equals @. That's just for our root directory. We actually need to do the same thing for all of our subvolumes too. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit Control K, and that actually cut the line, but I'm going to paste it right back. So Control U, Control U, Control U. Now we have 3 lines that now we can add /home. And pretty much just edit our subvol ID to 258 and our subvol to @home. And now we'll do the same thing for slash, instead of /home, now it's /snapshots. I'm going to come over here and change this subvol ID from 257 to 259, and subvol equals @snapshots. We should be ready to go now. So we're going to do Control X to get out, yes to write it out, and enter. Now we're going to cd out. Oh, I'm sorry, clear is not in there. So to get out of our shell, let's hit Control D to deactivate the shell, and we're going to go back up here and send it a key to Control Alt F1, and that's going to get us back to our ncurses installer. Now we can install the base system. So we're going to hit enter here, and we're going to continue on installing Debian as normal. So pretty much what we've done, we've pretty much just set up an expert install, formatted everything to BTRFS, but before installing the base system, we unmounted everything, created subvolumes, and then mounted the subvolumes to the target instead of the device itself to the target. And just made sure we had everything set up, and we had our FS tab set up to where it's going to work right. Then we get out of the shell, go back to the installer, and let it go. So I'm just going to blow through the rest of this. I'm going to install XFCE, and I will see you back at the desktop when we're done. Oh, and one more cool thing about this expert installer, you can actually go ahead and have the non-free software included in your app sources.list right as it's installed. So I'm going to go ahead and do that because, well, why not? And you can enable source repositories in apt as well. And once this pops up, you can even enable backported software as well. So I'm going to select that, and we're going to continue. And here we are at our login screen. So you see that the installation did successfully complete. So we're going to log in as Mike. And we're going to use the default config. Now let me mess with this a little bit, and I will get the resolution better, and yeah, it's just going to be better. All right, I think that looks a lot better. So now let me edit my preferences and increase my font size so it's a little easier to see anyway. So let's go ahead and make a snapshot of our system right after our install. So if we're going to do this manually, of course we're going to need to invoke sudo. Actually, tell you what, let's go ahead and look at our Etsy app sources list first. So let's do sudo nano /etsy apt sources.list. And you see we do have sudo privileges out of the gate. But one thing that I've noticed that the Debian expert installer does, it does not comment out this line right here. This one is for the CD-ROM. And if you don't comment out this line, it's not going to run updates properly. It's not going to want to install any kind of software out of the gate. So you're going to want to edit this file here, edit your Etsy app sources.list, and comment out this line. You know, our regular repos, our main, non-free, and contrib enabled on everything, and we also have our backports. So we're going to hit Control X to write it out, or yes to write it, and enter. So if we clear the screen, do sudo apt update, everything does work properly. So we're going to do sudo apt install, I don't know, git, vim, and let's do TimeShift. So while that's running, let's open up another terminal and place it right on top. And let's go ahead and create a BTRFS snapshot. If we do this manually, we're going to do sudo BTRFS subvolume snapshot. We want to do it of our root directory and put it in the root directory .snapshots / I like to put the date, so let's do 10/13/2020. We're going to call it root or -root snapshot. Give it our password, and it was created. So now if we do, let's say, sudo BTRFS subvolume list of root, you'll see that we have 257 is our regular root, 258 is home, 259 is snapshots, and now we have 264, which is a snapshot of our root directory. And we can boot from this snapshot if we want to, if we edit the sources.list, or not sources.list, the fstab file. I don't know why I've got sources.list on the brain. So if we do sudo vim /etsy fstab, we can change. Let's go ahead and make that full screen. So if we change this top line right here, and we change that subvolume ID to 264 instead of 257, and we could get rid of that if we wanted to, and we would boot from 264, which would be our snapshot. But we haven't changed anything, so why do that yet? But if you want to use TimeShift, there's a certain thing that you need to do. Because let's say I wanted to run TimeShift right now. So you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and add the whisker menu because, well, I like it a lot. Get rid of the applications menu. Okay. I like the whisker menu because I can just type in TimeShift. It asks for our password. And you can set up a snapshot type, whether it's going to be rsync if you have an ext4 or xfs or whatever kind of anything that's not BTRFS. So if I select that and I hit next, I can select VDA3 here and hit next. And let's say I want to do a boot, an hourly, weekly, monthly. Let's say I just want to select all of them. We'll hit next. And you can include your home subvolume in your backups. So if you click that, it's going to include, of course, your home subvolume. But let's say you just wanted to back up your root. You hit next and hit finish. All seems well and good right now. But if you hit create, it actually worked. All right, so that one actually worked. But one thing that I have learned, if you restore a snapshot with the fstab in the state that we have it in now, most of the time it's going to fail. So what I want to do is, let's vim/etc fstab. Because if we're going to use TimeShift, I want to get rid of subvol ID. And I want to do it on all of them. If you're doing it manually, I highly recommend doing the subvol ID. But if you're doing it with TimeShift, get rid of subvol ID and just go with your subvol. I've had the best luck with that. But yeah, I've had the best luck with just using subvol equals at home and at snapshots when I'm using TimeShift. If I'm doing it manually, go ahead and include your subvol ID equals and get rid of the subvol equals at or at home or at snapshots. The subvol ID is fantastic for manual. It's not so great if you're using it with TimeShift. So what I want to do is, I was not sudo, so let's do sudo vim etc fstab. So what I want to do now, I want to delete this. Get out of there. We're going to create another one. All right, and our snapshot was successful. It was not successful the first time I ran this off camera, but now that it's on camera, it worked. It's usually the other way around. Usually I can get it to work perfectly off camera, but as soon as I go to record, that's when it messes up. So this time it was right the opposite. But now you see that we have a Debian 10 snapshot here. So now let's go ahead and edit some stuff. Let's theme it a little bit, and then we'll create a snapshot after we theme it, and then restore our old one. So I'm just going to open up another terminal, and let's say sudo apt install, let's say Materia GTK theme and the deepen icons. Then we're going to do git clone https://github.com/github/terminal fetchers. And now let's do git clone https://github.com/linuxdabbler/personal.files into .files. All right, so that part finished. So let's go ahead and change our appearance to Materia Dark Compact. Let's change our icons to Deep and Dark. And let's go back to all settings, change our window manager to Materia Dark Compact. Hit close there. And see, we've already improved the look, in my opinion, greatly. So now that that's done, let's cd into terminal fetchers, and now let's say chmod plus x dev-fetch, and I want to have that run every time I start a terminal. So let's go ahead and say sudo mv dev-fetch to /user local bin, and let's echo dev-fetch into home/.bashrc. And now let's cd into our dot files, and let's move our wallpapers. Let's say cd wallpapers. So we have a bunch of them in there. So let's actually move everything.png into user share backgrounds. But we're gonna need to be sudo for that. So let's exit out of that. Now, if we open up this and let's go to desktop, change desktop base to backgrounds. It took a minute to populate because I had a bunch of them in there. So let's say we wanted this one as our background. I'm going to close that. And now that we've customized it a little bit, let's create another snapshot. So let's create that. And the snapshot was created successfully. So now what I want to do, I want to click this one and restore. We're going to do next. Restore was completed, but it's not going to show until after we reboot. So let's go down here, log out, restart. If everything's working properly, this should have undone all of our customizations. And it has. So let's say, and say dev-fetch is a command that's not found. So let's open up TimeShift again. Give it our password. All right, so let's say so let's choose this one, and we're going to restore that one. Restore completed. Now that that's done, let's go back and log out, restart. And you see all of our customizations are back. I just have to fix the resolution. Or better yet, I could just do this the GUI way. We go to display. We change this to 1920 by 1080 and hit apply. Let's close that. Close that. And you see that we're back to our regular system as we customized it earlier. So that's about all I've got for today. I just kind of wanted to show how to install Debian with BTRFS subvolumes for the root, home, and make a .snapshots directory. So if you wanted to do things manually, you could. Or if you, and also wanted to show how to set up TimeShift with BTRFS subvolumes. And honestly, it's pretty solid. I may set this up on my production machine because this is fantastic. I'm kind of interested to see how it's all going to work with my tiling window managers and everything. So I may set that up later. May do a video on it. I don't know. So anyway, thank you for watching. Y'all have a nice day. Like, share, and subscribe.